Some of the most unsettling things in the world are not legends or ghost stories. They are documented events that nobody has fully explained. This is Unexplained News Update, and I'm Reese Halden. Today, we have 5 stories, and they share something in common. Each one sits in that uncomfortable space between what we can prove and what we cannot. We start with one of the most famous unsolved tragedies of the 20th century. We move into real scientific mysteries happening right now on this planet. Then we look at why strange stories keep going viral online. And we close with a hard look at the prediction industry and why it is built to feel true, even when it might not be. Let's get into it. One of the most famous unsolved mysteries in modern history still refuses to settle into a clean explanation, more than 60 years after it happened. In February of 1959, 9 experienced Soviet hikers set out into the Ural Mountains of Russia. Their route took them past a peak locals called Halat's Shack, or Dead Mountain. They never came back. When rescuers found the camp weeks later, what they discovered made very little sense. The group was led by Igor Dyatlov, a skilled and trusted mountaineer. His team was not made up of beginners. These were people who knew winter survival. And yet the tent had been cut open from the inside, not ripped by the wind. Cut, as if the hikers needed to get out in a hurry and could not use the entrance. The bodies were found scattered across the slope, some more than a kilometer from camp, dressed in far too little clothing for the conditions. Several showed signs of severe physical trauma. According to reports from the investigation, some victims had crushed ribs, and at least one had a fractured skull. The force required to cause those injuries was described as comparable to a car crash, yet there were no visible external wounds to explain them. 2 of the bodies reportedly showed traces of radiation. Declassified notes attributed to the lead Soviet investigator Lev Ivanov mention reports of luminous spheres seen above the pass around the time of the deaths. Those details have never been fully explained by the official record. Over the decades, investigators and writers have proposed many theories: an avalanche, a military test gone wrong, infrasound causing mass panic. The Soviet government kept the case files restricted for years, which only added to speculation about what they might be hiding. There is even a fringe theory involving a cryptid, a large unknown creature, though that explanation is considered very weakly supported by the available evidence. A Russian investigation in 2019 officially blamed a small avalanche combined with the effects of a katabatic wind event. Many researchers found that explanation incomplete. It did not account for the radiation traces, the scattered bodies, or the nature of the injuries. The mystery is not just what killed them. It is why the official record never fully explained it, and that gap is what keeps the case alive. After a haunted-feeling historical case, the episode shifts to mysteries that scientists can actually measure today, and if anything, that makes them stranger. The planet is doing 2 unusual things at once, and both are well documented. The first is called the Earth hum. It is a continuous low-frequency signal that seismographs around the world have been picking up since the 1990s. It registers at roughly 2 to 7 millihertz, far too low for human ears to detect. It has been recorded in Antarctica on ocean floors and in remote deserts. Researchers generally believe it is connected to ocean waves interacting with the seafloor, but the exact mechanism is still debated. The hum is real. The full explanation is not finished. The second phenomenon is even more visually striking. Scientists call them gigantic jets. They are massive electrical discharges that fire upward from the tops of thunderstorms into the upper atmosphere. Instead of lightning going down to the ground, these go up. Way up, they can reach the ionosphere somewhere between 50 and 90 kilometers above the Earth's surface. A chance photograph taken from an aircraft in 1989 helped researchers realize that this kind of upward lightning was real and worth studying seriously. Since then, organizations including the National Aeronautics and Space Administration and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration have documented these events. They belong to a broader family of phenomena called transient luminous events. Other members of that family include sprites and elves, which are also real, also measured, and also not yet fully understood. The trigger conditions that produce gigantic jets are still under active study. Scientists know they exist. They have photographs and instrument readings. What they do not have yet is a complete picture of why and how. Sometimes the most interesting mysteries are the ones that science has already admitted it is not finished solving. These are not fringe claims or conspiracy theories. They are published, peer-reviewed open questions about the planet we live on. From seismographs and lightning cameras, we move to something less technical but just as revealing. The stories people keep telling about the things they cannot explain. A list of anonymous stories can sometimes say as much about a culture as it does about the paranormal. That is the lens worth using here. The website Bored Panda recently published a compilation of 79 user-submitted unexplained experiences. It spread quickly and the response was immediate. The stories covered a wide range of experiences. Shadow figures glimpsed at the edge of a room, dreams that seemed to predict events before they happened, strange disappearances with no clear resolution, sleep paralysis episodes that felt like more than just a trick of the brain. Most of the contributors were anonymous, and the accounts were not independently verified. That matters, but the pattern matters too. What researchers who study digital folklore point out is that these compilations work because of something called social proof. When people read a story and feel recognized by it, they are more likely to share it and add their own experience. The comment sections filled up with people saying the same thing happened to them. That cycle of recognition and sharing is how individual experiences become something bigger. The article connected this to the broader field of digital age folklore. Online platforms have changed how strange experiences get passed on. In the past, a story like this might have stayed within a family or a neighborhood. Now it can reach millions of people in hours. The American Folklore Society and researchers at the University of Edinburgh have studied how this kind of rapid transmission shapes and sometimes changes the stories themselves. The point is not that the stories prove the paranormal. It is that unresolved experiences still gather people around them. They always have. The internet just made the gathering much, much faster. Some of the scariest stories are not new at all. They just return when people are ready to hear them again. A short account from a 1970s book about unexplained mysteries recently found a second life on Reddit. The story came from rural Devonshire, the moorland county in southwest England known for its fog, its isolation, and its long history of folklore. Someone posted the account to the community called r/paranormal, and it gathered a large and engaged response. The account describes a witness encountering a tall, thin presence moving through the darkness in a way that felt deeply unnatural. Not simply fast or quiet, but wrong in some harder-to-describe way. The story does not explain what the thing was. It just describes what the witness reportedly saw and felt. That ambiguity is likely part of why it spread. The account does not oversell itself. It does not claim a monster or a demon. It simply describes something that did not fit. Devon and Cornwall have their own rich folklore traditions, including stories of night walkers and moorland figures that go back centuries. Whether this account draws on that tradition deliberately, or whether the writer was tapping into the same landscape instincts, is hard to say. There is also an honest caveat worth mentioning. The original book the account came from has not been definitively identified. That means the story's chain of custody is uncertain. It may have been condensed in retelling. It may have been partly shaped by whoever posted it to Reddit. Skeptics have raised those questions, and they are fair ones. But the story's power does not really depend on whether it is verified. Its mystery is inseparable from the way stories survive and change over time. Something about that description, a tall, thin figure moving wrong in the dark, reaches into something older than the internet. That is why it came back. After a story about old folklore finding a new audience, the episode turns to a very modern kind of viral claim: predictions about what is going to happen next. Prediction stories are designed to feel right before anyone can prove whether they are. That is not an accident. It is how the format works. The British outlet express.co.uk recently covered a story about a psychic whose earlier 2206 predictions were said to have come true. She then issued 5 new warnings for the rest of the year. The story spread widely. It is important to be clear about something. The claims were not independently verified, and psychic predictive ability has never been demonstrated under controlled scientific conditions. That is not a fringe opinion. It is the consistent conclusion of researchers who have tested these claims rigorously, including the work done by skeptical investigators like James Randi over decades of formal testing. So why does this content keep spreading? The article placed this story inside a much larger pattern. 2026 has seen a significant wave of prophecy content, including material built around the Bulgarian mystic Baba Vanga, and the perennial return of Nostradamus interpretations. This happens most years, but engagement numbers in 22/6 suggest the appetite is especially strong right now. The mechanism behind it is well studied. Confirmation bias plays a major role. When a vague prediction appears to match a real event, people remember the match and forget all the predictions that did not land. Platforms reward the content that generates clicks and shares, and fear-adjacent predictions do exactly that. The vaguer the language, the easier it is to fit the prediction to whatever actually happens. Pew Research data shows that a significant portion of adults in many countries hold some belief in psychic ability or spiritual premonition. That is not a reason to dismiss people who find comfort or meaning in these ideas. But it is a reason to read these stories carefully and ask who benefits from the belief being amplified. The system rewards the appearance of accuracy, not accuracy itself. That is worth keeping in mind the next time a headline tells you someone's predictions just came true. 5 stories today, and they all circled the same question. What do we do with the things that do not fully resolve? A mountain that killed 9 people and never gave up all its answers. A planet humming at a frequency we cannot hear. Thousands of people sharing strange experiences online and finding each other in the process. A 40-year-old story from a foggy English moor that came back because someone posted it at the right moment. And a prediction industry that is built by design to feel true. What they share is not the paranormal. It is the gap, the space between what we know and what we do not. That gap is real, and it is worth taking seriously. The best approach is probably the one this episode tried to model. Stay curious, stay grounded, and keep asking which part of a story is documented and which part is still open. Thanks for spending this time with Unexplained News Update. If you enjoy this kind of story, following the show is the best way to make sure you do not miss the next one. Leaving a rating wherever you listen also helps other people find us, and it genuinely makes a difference. I'm Reese Halden. Stay curious.